up, Badlands. Explain those Badlands. That's a hell of a name.
I don't consider myself a conspiracy buff at all, but when they get a lot of coincidences, I get a little suspicious and call me crazy.
Polls, weird talk shows, crazy groups every Sunday telling you what you think.
The Republicans and the Democrats conspire with one another, which they do.
There is a conspiracy by big business against American democracy.
We know that there was a conspiracy.
There was a conspiracy.
There was no conspiracy.
Was there a conspiracy?
A communist conspiracy directed out of Moscow.
The right-wing conspiracy.
Communist conspiracy is a deliberate and predictable plan of action to subvert the world.
Right-wing conspiracy.
It's an international criminal conspiracy.
Vast right-wing conspiracy.
Great conspiracy.
And all these conspiracy theories.
Was there a conspiracy? I don't know.
Perhaps themselves even involved in the conspiracy.
There was
a conspiracy.
No evidence
of a conspiracy.
Anybody would have to be a fool nowadays to dismiss conspiracies.
Conspiracy theory.
Cockeyed conspiracy theory.
Conspiracy theory exists because there really is conspiracy.
But they never told a soul about it. In fact, they engaged in a vast conspiracy.
Since you get accused of being a conspiracy theorist, of being a paranoid.
The historical context of actual conspiracy.
A conspiracy of bad people.
As always happens at some point in a conspiracy. One night, Cousin Eddie got drunk in a honky-tonk and spilled the beans.
There was a conspiracy, and government was involved in it.
Conspiracy existing within the United States government.
There was a conspiracy.
A
conspiracy by the CIA.
The conspiracy of a few.
Dark, secretive, conspiratorial, evil.
Then it was certainly a deliberate conspiracy.
High-level conspiracy.
The do's and the don'ts and the rights and the wrongs of the various conspiracy theories that are good.
Possibility of a conspiracy.
In a moral sense, I think it was a conspiracy.
One conspiracy, that's all I'm talking about.
Full of speculation, conspiracy theories, and the like. And what's going on here?
You began to wonder what was really happening in America. I mean, was there a vast conspiracy afoot?
You know, there could have been a conspiracy.
Do you think you're obsessed with conspiracy?
Conspiracy theory.
A conspiracy.
I'm afraid you'll catch me. I'm afraid you'll catch me.
A conspiracy would do the job nicely.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Baseless Conspiracies. I liked what Lion Share said in the chat. Hello and happy conspiring. Zach, how you doing, sir? How's the weekend?
The weekend was good. Busy, typical, busy as usual.
What project did you do around the house?
Okay, so I'm building out rain barrels in the backyard. So I had to reroute some gutters and do some math to make sure that I was sending all the water in the correct place. We're also building out a landscaping area in the backyard. So we have a fence that separates the yard in the back. And so I want to do like 2 or 3 feet worth of landscaping right in front of the fence. So then I won't have to mow all the way up to it. And then because it gets perfect sunlight, I'll be able to grow stuff. We've already got bananas growing back there, but I just kind of want to make it simpler for the stuff to grow. There's new frogs. I definitely got some pictures of frogs. Oh my God, John, today there was a hummingbird out in front of my house. I had these little red flowers that I planted, and hummingbirds love red and orange flowers. And it was there was a downpour. And so I went outside because a cardinal had built a nest in the light right above our front door. And Lisa saw it the other day, and there was this this moss hanging down. And so I went outside to look at it, and I realized that's a lot more than just moss. That's a nest. And so I climbed up and I got some pictures. Then there are 3 cardinal eggs in it, northern cardinal. And then once the rain started, the mama was in there sitting with the eggs. And so I went outside and I was taking some pictures and video of it. And I got there's this app called Merlin Bird ID, and you can listen to the sounds the birds are making, and it will identify the type of bird so that you know exactly what birds are living around you and stuff. And
incredibly nerdy, man.
Incredibly nerdy, yes. And so while I was doing that, a little hummingbird was flying around the island that I put in out front with those red flowers, and I got about 2 minutes of footage of this hummingbird. It was the coolest thing.
I don't think I've ever seen anybody so excited about birds before.
Well, I'm a pretty excitable person. There's a lot of things that I'm stoked about, but I mean, I did all this work to attract the birds, and now they're actually here.
I do got to ask too.
Yeah.
Are all the frogs you found? Do they all have all 4 of their legs?
Yes. But I was actually took a video of one of them earlier. He was just looking at me. He was hanging on the downspout and he's just looking at me. And they have the Cuban tree frogs. They have this strange posture they'll do where they'll hang on and then they'll bend almost all the way around, looking for bugs on the ground. And if they see them, they'll just pounce right off and get them from kind of high up. And so I got some video footage of him and I was like, hey, what's up, buddy? And I'm just sitting there talking to him. And I was like, I like to think that, this is one of Tripod's brood. This is Tripod's son or something like that. But
I like that. Alabama Christian in the chat says being excited about birds comes with age. And I'm curious if that's the thing. Have you always been excited about birds or just...
Oh, no, definitely with age. And I have to be honest. I mean, somebody said you got to tell Craig Mason. Craig and I are bird bros. I will always send him stuff about the birds. I've identified 3 different species of owl in the neighborhood. We've got a brood of bald eagles that live in the neighborhood as well. And so you'll go outside and they'll be flying over the top of the house. It's pretty sweet.
That is interesting. I haven't seen Craig in a while either.
Yeah. Well, I mean, he keeps having kids and, he's got his accounting firm. So he's still doing shows, but I mean, he's working on a whole bunch of old man projects too.
Well, that is good to hear. We are going to finish off tonight. I think we're finishing off. We kind of better finish off the Oklahoma City bombing series. Before we do that, we probably will talk a little bit about Biden, maybe some other stuff. We'll see what comes up. But before we get into any of that, we do got to get a quick word from our sponsor of tonight's show. That's EasyRx. We'd like to thank the folks at EasyRx for sponsoring our show tonight. They've helped so many Badlanders get the medications they need without breaking the bank. As 2024 fires up for the summer and seems to be a rerun of 2020, it's the perfect time to stock up on the suppressed medications and get your family ready for anything they will throw at us. EasyRx has a wide variety of high-quality medications like ivermectin, hydroxychloroquine, fenbendazole, and so many more. Fake news is getting more exposed every single day, especially with this Biden stuff lately, and people are waking up to the truth about health and many inexpensive life-saving medications. You'll find them all right there at EasyRx. Process is simple, the shipping is fast, and the prices are unbeatable. So breathe easy, knowing that you and your family are prepared for anything. And don't wait any longer. Visit badlandsmedia.tv/EasyRx. Use promo code Badlands for 10% off your purchase of $150 or more. That's badlandsmedia.tv/EasyRx, promo code Badlands. And before we went live here, I was listening to Hindsight 2020 show, and they were going through some of the COVID stuff. I mean, because they're covering July of 2020, and then it's taking place, and some of these states shutting down for July 4th weekend, and Trump saying he wanted to open stuff up, and it's insane to think back to that period of time and what we went through, and stuff like fenbendazole and hydroxychloroquine, where they were the life-saving medications we needed. We didn't need a damn COVID jab, but here we are.
They took it. They took our freedom.
Sure
so
somebody have a Rumble rant quick.
Yeah.
From Susie Q20, and this is a bird one, so we're going to read it since it's relevant. I'm a bird nut. I love them so much. My best friend and companion is an African gray parrot. He's 25 years old. They have a lifespan of 80 years. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, it's a real commitment to buy a parrot. I've considered it before, but then I backed off because you never know what's going to happen. And when those parrots bond with you, when you die, it's, horrible for them.
What's more of a
Susie,
commitment?
I hope you're in good health. I mean, I'm sure you are.
What's more of a commitment, a parrot or real red pill girlfriend?
Well, I mean, real red pill girlfriend technically can feed herself and, drive places. The parrot would be dependent upon me for absolutely everything. I mean, it's the same with all pets, but it's the time. It's like buying a tortoise or something. You better have kids because you're passing that thing on.
I like how you said she can technically feed herself. Why did you have to put technically
I'm the
in there?
cook.
Okay.
I'm the cook.
Just curious. The way you phrased that was intriguing, to say the least.
I mean, let me be clear. It's a commitment that I've willingly taken on. So there's no resentment or anything like that.
Well, I'd hope not. Anyway, let's talk a little bit about the Biden stuff. It's been a week since it last came up. I mean, obviously, since we've done the show, and that was like what, 3 days after the debate. We've talked about this on many shows, but it's like every day things are changing and evolving, and the media has gone from all in on removing Joe Biden in a coordinated fashion, including with some people from the Democratic aisle of government, the Democrats, like assisting this. And today, it was quite a bit subdued. Like a lot of people are like, okay, well, we just got to unite. It doesn't matter. Trump's the biggest threat to democracy. It doesn't matter what his age is. We just got to all come together now. There is still some, pushback on removing Joe. But as I've been saying, I am fully committed to the fact that I don't think they can remove him. I think they're stuck with him, and they've been stuck with him since Trump devolved the government.
I agree with you. And I think that, Biden, his team put out a notice, saying just exactly that, hey, it's time to unite. We've got to take down Trump. And he went through a whole bunch of lies, things that Trump would do or things Trump wants to do, none of them being true. And the ultimate message was that he's not going anywhere. And what I love seeing is I have hereby resigned as any type of food production in this house. Okay. She does know how to make some stuff. Okay. I wasn't a slight, honey. Anyways. So what I love seeing is, number one, Biden's pride and narcissism. Okay. I think it's entirely possible that he's being that he's being controlled, but I also believe that he is A, too dumb to realize it, and B, too infirmed to really let it register. Okay. I think that's what makes Biden the perfect patsy for this role. He's the perfect puppet. It's like Howdy Doody not realizing that dude has his hand up his ass. And that's exactly what's happening with Biden. So even if he were a little bit more coherent, if he was to step down, John, he would have no utility. There would be no one anywhere that would have any use for him, because the people that he is selling information to or giving preferential treatment to or trading American foreign policy, none of those global players would have any need for Joe Biden anymore. And even more than that, he would be a direct threat to them and their plans. Now, he would also be a direct threat to any of the Democratic leadership or Democrat politicians that got in bed with him. Business leaders, crime figures, all of them would have a greater benefit to seeing Joe Biden disappear. And so I think that's why Hunter is so dead set on making sure that he stays and he continues to run. At the very least, either he loses, which I believe he will, but it will be through, from his perspective, no fault of his own. For whatever reason, it didn't work out. But if he steps down, he's guaranteed to be signing his own death warrant. And I just think that Joe Biden would not allow that to happen. This is a man who, throughout the entirety of his career in public service, has been entirely committed to corruption and self-aggrandizement, building up his family wealth, making all of these connections. He exists within a bubble where his importance is based upon his position. And if there's no position, there is nothing left for him. So it doesn't matter to him what he's doing to the country. It doesn't matter if people are controlling him behind the scenes. The only thing that matters is saving his own hide.
I've been trying to figure out why, and I talked about this a lot on Saturday, like why now, what's going on? And I think, again, just spitballing here a little bit, and maybe we'll flesh this out a little bit more in detail on Wednesday's Power Hour, but it almost feels like the media and some of these other people in the Democratic Party have figured out that they're not in control. Like they figured out that there is something going on behind the scenes, and maybe it's something they figured out a long time ago.
Yep.
But this was their Hail Mary to like push back and change the course of how things are playing out right now. They were like, okay, we're going to do it. We're going to get rid of him. We're going to make the public demand to get rid of him so high that he's going to have to step down. But they were unsuccessful. They didn't get him removed. But the fact that it was so coordinated and just so out of character for these same people who have covered for him for so long to do this in unison, that's the only explanation I've come up with so far that makes sense to me. But it's perfect. Today we also had, and maybe it wasn't even today, it was the last couple of days, the talk of this, is it the SAVE Act or whatever? Basically, the Republicans are putting forth this bill which something that should be common sense, but making it illegal and something that's also kind of already illegal for illegal immigrants to vote in our elections.
Right.
And the Democrats are now like, no, we don't want to do that. The official White House position on this is no, that doesn't make any sense because it already is illegal, all these things. And this is how they're going to steal it. Like they are they're showing us the game here, how it's going to play. They're going to be stuck with Joe Biden, but Donald Trump is such a big threat. Their only path forward is to manipulate the polls, manipulate everything. Donald Trump is such a liar and he's such a threat that it makes sense that Joe Biden got all these votes, and they're going to backfill it all with these illegal immigrants voting. And we're seeing in real time the dismantling of the too big to rig thing. And so again, there has to be something else bigger going on behind the scenes in order for any of this to make sense and play out, because I fully believe that Trump knows and is aware and controlling a lot of how this stuff is playing out. It's almost too perfect for what we've been talking about for so long.
For the American people, like having this mask ripped off of Biden so quickly, like everyone going in opposition to him suddenly. Okay, up until that moment, Joe Biden was cogent. Joe Biden was the best version of himself. Joe Biden had nothing wrong with him. All of his stumbles, his gaffes, it was nothing. We were crazy. Now, all of a sudden, in unison, the mainstream media and Democrat politicians suddenly turn around and say, whoa, something's wrong. We can't allow this to go on. Okay, obviously all of that stuff doesn't just begin in a single night. So the lying and the psyopery was exposed. All of these people were exposed for being known liars and completely untrustworthy. And the American people are now watching them. They're actually still fighting with each other. Like Jerry Nadler, Hakeem Jeffries holds a call on Sunday with like Democrat leadership. Jerry Nadler and a couple of other high-level Dems come out and say, we need Joe Biden to step down. But it's still not universal. And it doesn't matter because he's not going to do it anyways. So you've got this schism in the party. The people who are like, okay, we were, I guess, we didn't see it this entire time, but that's completely implausible. Like everybody saw it. And then you've got the other people who are like, oh, I don't care if he's shitting his pants on stage. I still want Joe Biden because, threat to democracy. We got to beat Trump. But the American people see it for what it is. The American people know that there's no way they're going to be voting for Joe Biden. And the American people are paying attention to how many illegals are in the country and how easy it is for people to come in and vote if you're a non-citizen. So even if they do successfully pull off a winning of the election for Joe Biden, everybody in America is going to know that there's no fucking way. We did not vote for Joe Biden. Nobody I know voted for Joe Biden. Joe Biden is obviously an imbecile. Okay. He's in the advanced stages of a neurodegenerative disease. And that's going to be, I think, the final straw. And then at the same time, there will be some proof that will be made publicly available exposing these people completely. And then we can go ahead and fix it.
Your girlfriend in the chat made the comment. Lots of comments about how you're cut off now from any favors, food, and all stuff like that. But this is having to do with our discussion. She says, I think they're going to steal it again too. What we're saying, doesn't want it to be true, but I think it may be necessary. And I think that's the point. It's you can't take down like the deep state and the cabal without exposing it first.
Yeah.
And I do still believe that. So many things have been exposed, and maybe even not fully, but enough things have happened that once you get that final like red pill moment, which I think a stolen election for Joe Biden would be for so many people in this country, there is no going back. And that right there is a constitutional crisis. I don't think we're going to see like actual violence in the streets. We might see some, what's the Patriot Front, doing some stuff, but I think Trump won't let it get that far. I really don't, but it's going to be, man, these next, how many months is it? 4, 7, 8, how many months are away? Are we 4 months-ish from the election?
Yeah.
Are going to be very exciting. We have this upcoming GART here. Our GART in Myrtle Beach in November, which, by the way, I think we're going to put tickets on sale in the next week or two. It's going to be lit. That's going to be right after the election.
Yeah.
It is going to be lit regardless of what happens, because it's either going to be a Trump win, we're going to be partying, or it's going to be such a blatant, obvious steal that I guess I don't know if we'll be celebrating that. Maybe partially because we've been telling you guys this is how it's going to go down for a long time. but it'll be so much fun. So
somebody in the chat said, I'm sorry, if it gets stolen, nothing's going to happen. We're in a very different position in terms of not only recognition by the American people of the fraudulent nature of our system, but also the allies that Trump has in Congress and in positions of power who would be willing to stop this from simply being certified, from rubber stamping it. Okay, like the evidence is out there. And I truly do believe that these people are aware of it. And they know that this is not just another 4-year election. I mean, last time, it was obviously going to be bad. We wanted to avoid what we've been living through these last 3.5 years. But it's not just our lives. It's not just our bank accounts. Even these people who are in Congress who are making buku dollars, selling America to the highest bidder, they're going to be deeply affected if we turn into a full-scale socialist nation that pays fealty to a global governance council. And those people are going to be just as vulnerable as us. If Joe Biden and the current deep state regime are allowed to evolve into the next iteration of what they're trying to do in the destruction of America and the dismantling and then the rebuilding of it into something that is some Frankensteinian version of itself, it's going to be bad, bad, bad. And so I do not believe that those people are just going to say free and fair election. Okay. I mean, like, think about all the things that we spoke about, during Trump's first administration that were conspiracy theories. This is why we called this show Baseless Conspiracies, because we were talking about the truth. We were derided as conspiracy theorists. Turns out they weren't conspiracy theories. They were conspiracy facts. They were conspiracies that simply had not been revealed to the American people yet. So now that they have been, people's minds have opened in a way that simply wasn't possible before. The public sentiment about the validity of our election system is in the tank. People realize how bad it is. And all of those Republican politicians who are out there, crowing about the open border and the illegals that are coming through, they know damn well that those people are getting Social Security numbers, are being given voter identification cards or, the registration application so that they can vote. And they know that Joe Biden was flying illegals into Texas and Florida. Okay, there's a reason that you would send illegals, potential voters, into the two most conservative states in the union so that you can try to flip the vote. And it's very, very obvious to me.
There's a couple things I want to address here quick. So I see a lot of people talking about, I just don't know if I can handle much more of this or whatever, like the stress, the worry, all these things. Worst case scenario, guys, worst case scenario. And I guess none of us can predict the future, but none of us thought we can get through these last 3.5 years,
Amen.
Honestly. And yet here we are. And honestly, like these last couple of weeks have been so much winning. It's been awesome. And we have each other, right? The community we built here at Badlands, we are strong, we're resilient, and I'm not concerned about that. And part of my lack of concern is because I am confident that things will not play out the same way as it did in 2020. And this is the other comment I want to address. Ready to Rumble Chris over on Rumble says, John and Zach, you spelled my name wrong, by the way. It's just Jon, short for Jonathan. And they spelled your name wrong, Z-A-C-H.
Just Z-A-K. Yeah, it's all good.
Anyway, that's not why I'm picking on you. If they steal it again, please explain how it gets remedied. There's not a single person out there that can tell you how things are going to play out. Nobody knows for sure. Okay. But to me, it comes down to this is how I think about it, right? Right now, currently, there's one of two things going on. Either there is something bigger going on behind the scenes because Trump saw election theft was coming. He made moves, put something in place, and he walked away from an obviously stolen election, having the authority and the evidence, I think, to interdict in Joe Biden's inauguration. Okay, so what we're living through isn't quite exactly what we're being told it is, right? Devolution. That's what I think it is. It's either that or Trump walked away from a stolen election when he had and he's derelict in his duties. He's not the guy we thought he was in the first place. And is it the former or the latter, whatever. If Trump isn't who we thought he was, we're probably more screwed than we realize, because there is no way that Trump can just rely on getting back into office using the same method that they stole it from him in the first place. That just doesn't make logical sense.
No.
But I fully believe that there is something bigger going on. I think there's mountains of circumstantial evidence pointing to that. And I think Trump is smarter than just walking away without having some sort of return to office cemented in place. But nobody knows what that's going to look like. I have no idea what it is. We can speculate all day. Talking in circles might not do anybody any benefit, but that's a little bit of where the faith has to come in, that looking at the circumstantial evidence can give you confidence that there is something bigger going on. And that's why I'm comfy with however this plays out. They're going to steal it. I fully expect it. I've been saying that for years. And I kind of hope they do, because I do think that's going to be the exposure that we've been waiting for. That is going to be the final red pill moment. And however it plays out after that, I'm okay with it, because I know for a fact, maybe there is no way to remedy something like that, but maybe we just need a huge chunk of the population, 75% of the country or the world, understanding that your government is illegitimate.
Yep.
Because it is right now. We don't know, but we're going to be okay regardless.
So one thing that we used to talk about a lot during the first Trump administration was, enough people waking up. That great awakening moment is when there's a critical mass and enough people accept and understand the truth, and as a result, find the will to act in unison. Okay? Think about the changing public sentiment that has taken place in just the last 3.5 years. Okay? Yes, it's been difficult. Yes, everybody has suffered. Yes, it's been painful. But at the same time, more people have awoken during Joe Biden's time in office than awoke during President Trump's time in office. They may not fully understand the ramifications of everything that's happened, but the public sentiment has changed to such a degree that a vast majority of this country now understands that continuing on this current path is not simply electing another dumb politician. Okay? It has to be a return of greatness in some fashion or another. And Donald Trump is the only choice between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. We know exactly what we would get under Joe Biden. We know exactly the trajectory that it's on. And I think that most of us suspect that we also know what that trajectory would be under Donald Trump. People are not going to accept certain drastic changes that must take place in this country unless the majority of people in this country see the problems as they exist and accept that they must change. Illegal immigration did not begin under Joe Biden, but it exploded at critical mass under Joe Biden. Okay, that's a problem that's existed for, decades, obviously. So now, as a result of the very quick degradation of this country under Joe Biden, it has allowed many, many more Americans to come to the realization that things have got to drastically change. That simply could not happen under President Trump. And I've said this on so many occasions. If, say Mike Pence goes in, he says, I'm not going to certify because this is obviously a stolen election. We got to do an investigation, or we're going to go ahead and just, say that Trump won it. Think about how much, fully 50% of the country at that time would have revolted for the wrong reasons. Okay. And there would have been the complicity in the mainstream media, the uniparty. They would have been after Trump. It would have been another 4 years of bullshit investigations, more impeachments. Maybe one of them would have been successful, and then they would have gotten rid of him and nothing would have happened, and we would have had the installation of a terrible politician. All right. Now, people see what happened. People see that the election was stolen in 2020. People know that we were right when we said Joe Biden had dementia back in 2018, okay? After he left, people know about Burisma. People know about the Biden crime family. People know about trading American foreign policy for millions of dollars. There is so much revelation that has happened, and people now get that we have to do this differently. And also, we've had a couple of significant Supreme Court battles that have allowed us to significantly pare back the breadth of the administrative state, which is the deep state. That hadn't happened before. President Trump is going to be coming back in with a unique set of circumstances and tools that simply did not exist. And along with that comes the explicit approval of the American public. That had to happen. Yep. That right there is that critical mass for us.
And here's the thing, guys. Things have been crazy these last few weeks. It's only going to get crazier in these next 4 months. Like we are going to. I can't. Even, I don't even know. But things are going to get worse. Things are going to get worse for Biden. Things are going to get worse on the world stage. Who knows what's going to happen? I still think we're waiting on the threat of nuclear war, like a real threat of that. It's going to get much more. It's going to get dicey for a while. I don't think we're there. We're still way too comfy. If you take an honest reflection of your situation, most people are going to say that they're still pretty comfy. And it takes people being uncomfortable, like honestly, truly uncomfortable, to snap out of that hypnosis they've been under from the mainstream media for these last decades, whatever it's been. It's only going to get more ridiculous. And that's why I don't know how it's going to turn out. I don't know the mechanism. I don't know how Trump's going to do things differently this time. Maybe it's through the Supreme Court. The media has certainly been freaking out about the Supreme Court lately. We don't know, but I'm confident that Trump is not going to let it happen twice. I think I do think he's kind of pushed the limit, right? Like walking away once, he knows he's got his finger on the pulse of the American people, his supporters. I think he risks. I think there is a risk of actual like violence potentially if things do get played out the same way. But that's why I don't think it's going to happen that way. It's going to be different this time around. It has to be. But we can cross that bridge when we get there. The main point of this is we're stuck with Biden, and they have no other choice than to steal it. And I'm here for it.
Yeah. So, one thing, just what somebody said earlier about, I don't know how much more I can take. You all are stronger than you know. Okay. Because I remember back in 2019, as we were heading into 2020, people were saying in the chat, America will not survive if Joe Biden gets elected. Okay. Well, guess what? Here we are 3.5 years later, and we're talking about another election cycle. All right. You have survived. You may not be able to remain as comfortable as you were before, but here we are, and we're doing it. We are making do. People have survived with a lot less, and they have thrived. All right. So things are changing for the better. And, I too am extremely comfy. I mean, in my mind, in plenty of different ways, I am not nearly as comfy as I was when President Trump was in power, in the White House, I should say. But in general, I am not concerned, because I truly do believe that this is going to sort out. And I also want everybody to remember that it's not only Trump. Trump has allies in all manner of places. All right. There are others that are working with him that I am certain will ensure that this goes down in the least bloody way possible. I think that, if we were going to have a civil war, it was going to erupt as a result of, a battle of wills between Biden and Trump at that time. All right. I simply do not think that's going to happen, because people don't want Joe Biden. People don't want a civil war. They want us to have a civil war. I think that it's likely that the dollar will collapse. I could see the threat of nuclear war looming over the election, and Donald Trump being swept into office so that he can build that peace with Russia and become the greatest president of the 21st century. I can obviously see that happening, but overall, there are so many different possibilities that we have here. I mean, this is like an unlimited choose your own adventure story. And, somebody knows which direction we're going. Somebody knows which chapter's coming next, but that's not for us to know, truly, at the end of the day. And if it was that easy for us to just say, this is exactly what's going to happen, well, then it would be that easy for the deep state to just head off every operation at the pass, and it would never be successful.
Here's what I got to say to you. If you are one of those that's feeling like a little defeated, maybe a little lonely or isolated, concerned about we're all concerned, but what I recommend to you is either one, coming to a GART, Great American Restoration Tour. We have 2 of them scheduled. We've been talking now recently about some of our events for 2025. Get together with the people in your community that are like-minded. It's so important. That's why we do these events. It's building that community. We have such a strong community at Badlands. If you can't come to one of the sanctioned GARD events, Badlands events, a lot of our individuals put together Badlander meetups. Like, they're unofficial, they're not affiliated with Badlands, but it's all Badlanders getting together and just building that community. And if there's none in your area, maybe start one yourself. Like, start putting stuff out there here in the chat and Telegram, whatever, and get together with people and build your little network. And that's all you need to get through, guys. I'm telling you, having that community is so important. We will get through another, however long it takes to rectify this, but I fully believe that Trump's got it.
You know, and just one last thing, you know, this force that we fight against has not erupted in the last 10 years. Okay. This is a multi-generational war that we are fighting, and we're fighting it on multiple levels, spiritual and physical. So even when we start the process of healing and remaking America, making America great again, it's not going to happen overnight. I mean, we are going to be looking at a period of restoration. How long did the restoration last after the Civil War, John? I don't remember.
Oh, gosh,
Ghost
like
is out.
6 to 10 years, maybe.
Okay. So yeah, just think about it like that. You know, I mean, there is going to be a readjustment period, and then it's going to be incumbent upon us to continue to foster that new version of the republic, to ensure that these people don't just sneak right back in because we get lazy and we get complacent. All right. I mean, I'm thinking, you know, I mean, just looking at history, I mean, we've talked about the fourth turning before. You know, we're looking at probably, you know, a 70-year period or so of growth and happiness and perfect times. And then eventually, because it's so good, people will get lazy and they will stop keeping up their end of the bargain. And the whole thing will happen again. And that's just the way that the world works. I'm hoping that it doesn't have to be that way, but I tend to believe it will, just by looking back at history.
Did have a question in the chat from Muncha Doodles. If I come to a GART, will you hold me, John? Yeah, we do have a session where you know, we form a line, everybody goes through, and Badlands host will just hold and comfort all attendees. So it's definitely worth it.
Just pat your back.
Dude, I seriously cannot wait for Deadwood. After the Minnesota Badlanders event, on the way home, I stopped and stayed at a casino, and that was just I love the atmosphere of the slot machines and the just everything. And Deadwood it's seriously my favorite place. You will never see me happier than you will in Deadwood, guys. You gotta come, and there are still tickets available. But if you can't attend in person, get your virtual tickets. And like I said, our Myrtle Beach ones will be going on sale probably in the next week or so. I just got to confirm that with Mrs. Bright. So probably going to get yelled at for some misinformation if I got that wrong. But I just want to put this up here. Go to badlandsmedia.tv/events. That's where you can get your in-person or virtual tickets. We'll probably do a couple of exclusive virtual live streams for ticket holders here soon. And then our Myrtle Beach one will be here, and plus whatever ones we do in the future will be on this part as well. Bay Theater Dave, what are you talking about? Not that bad. I hugged John, not bad. you know it was great. You know it. Anyway, before we get into the conspiracy, we should do that here shortly.
Yeah.
I think I'm going to check real quick if we got any boosts since I'm on the website anyway.
Okay.
Oh, it doesn't look like we do. No boosts. Guys, if you're not watching live and you want us to read your comment on air, you can go to badlandsmedia.tv, click on support, click on leave a boost, and then make sure you do it for the show, and we will read it live on air on the next episode.
What we should probably do is just make the name of that page badlandsmedia.tv/boost.
Well, we are in the process of revamping some things on our website, so maybe I'll throw that out there.
Yeah.
We'll see.
That'll be easy.
I just want to. This is a baseless conspiracy. I do not wear aqua velvet.
You know
what? Whatever.
You know what cologne I wear?
Do I want to know?
Fuck yeah! Success by Trump.
Oh, okay. One of our buddies got signed gold sneakers from Trump, man. Did you see that?
No, I didn't. Who?
The Storm has arrived, got his gold sneakers in, and he was one of the 10 that were signed.
Oh, God.
I know. I want to. Can't even explain how frustrated I am.
I had him in the cart. And I just didn't buy him quick enough.
It's literally the only time in my life that I've regretted that my kids were with me, because they are the reason I didn't purchase my sneakers. I had them. I was on the page doing it, and then I don't know. My kid had a go potty, whatever.
Yeah.
And so I had to deal that, and I forgot about it. And then all of a sudden I come back and they're sold out because they sold out so quickly.
Yeah, they did.
I got white ones, but they haven't come yet. But still, I'm so frustrated. Those gold sneakers.
Oh my God. Good for him.
Yeah.
I'm sick to my stomach.
I am too.
I can't believe it. Oh.
My birthday is coming up though, so I'm holding out hope that, you know, he loves me just the right amount to give me, you know, those things are probably worth like $500,000. So
yeah, they are. Wow.
Unbelievable.
Did he write 45, 47 on them?
No, here, let me find it.
Oh, let's see the picture. Yeah, show me the picture. Oh God.
It's just insane.
Oh, I was so close.
I mean, I was already jealous enough of the people that got them, but then
Yeah.
to know that somebody I know got signed ones.
Yeah, yeah. Oh my God.
Look at that.
God,
this is so
gorgeous.
Sexy.
Oh, it's amazing. It's freaking amazing. Oh, wow. Wow. I'm so happy for you, bro.
I mean, I hate him now, but I'm also happy for him.
Oh,
a little bittersweet.
I hate myself for being freaking ADD.
What's gonna be crazy too? Like I have zero confidence that I'll ever be able to get anything like this because
yeah.
Next time these go on sale, they're gonna be gone in a second.
No,
in a second.
I mean, you can find fake ones all over like eBay and stuff like that, but people are pretending that they're real.
I mean, maybe I'll just buy some fake ones.
I don't know, dude. I just didn't feel comfortable with it. I wanted the real thing.
I just wanted to wear them to Gart. Like, that'd be the only time I'd wear them. Man. Trump, if you're watching, or if anybody in that, you know, send me some sneaks, man. Would love some gold ones. Or my white ones that I ordered. That'd be cool. Dirk McGurkin did say he'll sign a pair for me. So, Dirk, if you come to a Gart, I would love your signature on a pair of shoes.
Right on. Right on.
Anyway.
All right. So
where did we leave off?
Well, tonight we're going to be talking about the deaths of a number of witnesses, and in particular, the death of Officer Terry Yakey. He was the first responder on scene at the bombing, like almost immediately as soon as it happened. So just to refresh you, so it's important that Terry was there so quickly, because as I have demonstrated in a number of different ways from various witnesses, there was a presence already on site, and there was a couple of local investigators, people who lived in Oklahoma City, who, as soon as the bombing happened, they were trying to get answers, and because all of the information was conflicting from all these different places, a couple of locals, Glenn and Kathy Wilburn, eventually, through Freedom of Information Act requests, were able to get the Oklahoma City Sheriff's Department to admit that they already knew about the bombing from a number of multiple and consistent eyewitness testimonies. So multiple people who were on site, and Terry Yakey would have been one of them, saw a government bomb squad that had already been at the Murrah building that morning. They were waiting. They were essentially staging right down the street and then in and around the building. There were also emergency radio transmission transcripts that were sent and received on that morning that prove that there were a ton of policemen and firefighters that all witnessed the ATF at the scene that morning. Now, incidentally, all of those transcripts were mysteriously deleted. So they were all gone at some point. There was also a local lawyer, Daniel J. Adamitis. He was interviewed, and he said there was this fairly large truck with a trailer behind it. It had a shield on the side of the door that said bomb disposal or bomb squad on it. And I found that really interesting. You know, I'd never actually seen that in person. So from the Oklahoma City Sheriff's Department, you had confirmation in a number of different ways. They also had multiple surveillance cameras, and obviously the FBI had come in and taken all of those, but the cameras themselves, as seen by certain people before they were summarily scooped up, showed that there were the ATF agents that were hiding out on the street, likely preparing to jump in for the operation and then declare themselves heroes, essentially. Now, we know 100% they were not in the building. They worked there. They were supposedly the threat. However, all of them were out of the building. All of them were simply waiting to run in there and to try to save the day. Now, the interesting part about this, well, I'm going to save that one for the end. But, okay. So, there was a witness by the name of Mike Loudenslager. All right. We'll talk about who Mike was. As far as the police that were on scene, Terry Yakey being one of them, all of the available off-duty police and fire and on-duty police and fire and medical personnel from the entire metropolitan area responded to that scene. So it was immediately awash in first responders. Every single citizen who worked and was in that area, they all showed up and they all started helping out. And Terry Yakey was one of those people. He was going into the blast zone, into the building, and he was bringing people out. And everybody had one thing in mind. They just wanted to get the injured out of the building as quickly as possible. They knew that there was a daycare inside there. Okay. And in that first couple of minutes, there were a number of people who ended up risking their lives. They ended up, not making it. But per reports, some of the very first being Terry Yakey, another officer named Gordon Martin, another one named Ken Griffin. Those were all Oklahoma City police officers.
Ken Griffin Jr.?
It sounds like maybe it was Ken Griffin Sr. But then you also had firefighters, Dr. H. Don Chumley, and then the General Services Administration planner, who was Michael Lee Loudenslager. So why is Michael Loudenslager important in this story? Well,
sounds like a made-up last name, if I'm just being honest.
No, it's actually his last name. But a lot of people knew him. He was an important figure because he was the General Services Administration planner. And even more importantly than that, people were aware of him before the bombing because he is one of those people who gave warnings to a number of the families who had children that attended that daycare inside the Murrah building. So in the weeks leading up to this event, Mike Loudenslager, who was 48 years old at the time, he was aware of a presence in the building, that presence being large amounts of ordnance and explosives. This was being stored inside the building, and he saw it, he knew it, and as a result, he warned a number of parents who had their kids that were going to the daycare center, specifically strongly urging them to take their children out of the Murrah building. So after he starts telling people about this, you also had a number of other employees who saw the ordnance and the explosives. They were pretty concerned about it themselves because you also had missiles, all right, that were on site. They were worried as to why the ATF would be bringing in this sort of high-level explosive material. So they actually filed a grievance with the General Services Administration's building security director, and his wife actually was the one who ran that daycare center. All right.
Loudenslagers?
No. The
ATF director.
Well, no. The GSA itself, okay, which is who Loudenslager worked for, got the warning about this. And I guess maybe it is his wife. No, I'm sorry. It's the security director for the building. The security director for the building was informed because of this GSA complaint that was made. And his wife was the one who was running that daycare center. So that security director, he ended up losing his job at the Murrah Center as a result of this kind of telephone game that was being played. So there was also some remodeling work that was being done at the daycare center. And his wife, who was still working there, had notified the fire marshals about the completion of this work because evidently that was like part of her licensure. Like she had to inform about work that was being done. And the fire marshals were supposed to come in and inspect, but federal agents stopped them as they were coming in to inspect. This is before the bombing, obviously.
Like how soon before the bombing?
Well, I mean, this is in the weeks leading up to the Murrah building. I would say, I mean, I don't know the exact date, but I just know that the official report was made. They ended up firing the security director for raising a stink about it. The wife was in charge of the daycare, so she knew about the complaint. And once the work had been completed, she had to call the fire marshal to say, you must come in and inspect. Well, when the fire marshal came in to inspect, the federal agents in the building, I'm not certain if it was the FBI or if it was the ATF, they stopped him from coming in and doing the inspection. Now, the daycare center was, one of the epicenters of the blast. Okay. So it's highly likely that some of these explosives, at least one of them, had been set somewhere inside this daycare center.
So just to clarify,
yeah,
the official narrative is the van that was outside. It is the
wait,
epicenter.
Say that again.
No.
Well, yes, the official narrative is that the van, the Ryder van out front, is what caused the explosion.
That's
but the
official
crater
narrative is the epicenter. Right?
Yes.
Is
but
the van.
The physical evidence on site does not jive with that. Physical evidence on site does not jive with the type of bomb that they said it was either. All right. The blasts that were felt inside the building, you had multiple concussive blasts that seemed like the first blast felt like an earthquake, like the ground actually moved. And then the second blast blew up and blew right through the building and blew the roof off the building. Okay. And the daycare center was completely destroyed. Lots of just about every kid died. I mean, I've got some pictures of kids that were pulled out, but I don't know that we need to show them. But
yeah, it sounds terrible.
Yeah. Now, as a result of the woman running the daycare, raising a stink because the feds would not allow the fire marshal to come in, she actually lost her contract and they fired her. So at the exact moment that the bombing occurred, Loudenslager was actually in court. And right after the bombing occurred, Loudenslager was one of those people who showed up and started assisting in the rescue. And we know that because there were many people who were questioned right after the explosion, and they either assisted him or they saw him or they spoke with him. And during that time that he was there, he apparently started getting into an argument with somebody who was on site at the bombing. Okay. Knowing what we know about his foreknowledge about this likely bombing occurring, it's highly possible that perhaps he was getting into an argument with one of the federal agents, like an ATF agent or perhaps FBI. FBI were almost immediately on scene. The closest FBI field office was 15 miles away, or 15 minutes away, rather. All right. So it would have taken them some 20, 30 minutes. And with the traffic and, all the chaos, there's no way that they could have gotten there as quick as they did. But they showed up and they were already in all their gear, like their full tack gear. Okay. And people saw that and they were like, this is not normal. How did the FBI know to get here so quickly? So from witnesses at the scene, the reason that Loudenslager was angry was because he directly suggested that the ATF was in some way responsible, that they were complicit, that it was their fault that the bombing occurred, that the deaths of the children and the people who worked inside that building, it was 19 kids, I guess, who actually died in the daycare center. But he put the blame right on the ATF.
I do have a question. Ryo Dragon over on YouTube, we are live on YouTube. Still can't believe they haven't kicked us off there.
Yeah.
So count your blessings. But says first explosion was the Ryder truck. Was there a blast from the Ryder truck? There must have been.
I mean, I don't necessarily know. And we can't really tell because the only thing that survived from the Ryder truck was the rear axle. So considering the power from this blast, and it was likely like some sort of like advanced neutron bomb or something like that. It wasn't an ANFO bomb. It wasn't just C4 or anything like that. The type of blast that it was described by military demolitions experts and people who worked at Los Alamos as a very specific type. I think they called it the Blue Death. I don't have any notes. I erased all the notes on the Blue Death. But the Blue Death was what it was identified as by people who actually worked on it. This particular bomb, it actually left a signature of, if I believe, sulfur in the air. And the smell of ANFO would have been a different chemical smell. And there were multiple people who showed up to assist in the search and rescue who said it smelled like sulfur. It did not smell like ANFO. So if the blast was ANFO, first of all, it wouldn't have been powerful enough to completely take out the center of that building and the whole front face of it. All right. It would have blown out all the windows, but it would not have left as much damage as it did. And the reason we know this is because ANFO bombs have been used in a number of different places, including ANFO bombs roughly the size of what the government claims was there. And none of them resulted in the same type of blast that we saw in Oklahoma City. And even more, suspiciously, the government very quickly tore the building down and did not allow for the proper forensic investigation for anybody to get the answers, leaving us questioning the official narrative to this day. Okay. All right. So people saw Michael Loudenslager assisting in the rescue. People saw him arguing with an ATF agent. And then a little bit later that day, a number of police officers and rescue workers who had been there working with Michael Loudenslager heard a report stating that GSA employee Mike Loudenslager's body had been found inside the Murrah building that following Sunday. Okay. So he was there. Okay. He was alive. He was aiding in the rescue. But allegedly, he actually died in the blast, and they found his body.
What?
Yes, exactly.
Okay. Well, how do they explain this?
Well, I mean, John, these people are evil. They can do whatever they want. They just do or say. I mean, so much of this story makes absolutely no sense if you have the full picture. But they just put it out there. They killed him. They put him in the building. Or maybe they didn't even put him in the building. Maybe they just killed him, and then they just took him with them. And then they said, oh, yeah, we found him in the morning on Sunday.
But what do you think the motive is?
Because he knew that the ATF were complicit in the explosion and the death of all of these people.
Man, that's crazy.
Yes. I mean, I'd say that's enough, especially when they want to create the narrative of right-wing militias and extremist Christian groups that are looking to create a race war and overthrow the democratically elected government of the United States of America. So
that's crazy. So there's witnesses who have testified that he was there helping in the recovery.
Yes. First responders.
But the official narrative says this dude was found dead from the blast.
The official narrative is that he was at his desk at 9:02 a.m. when the bomb went off, and that killed him. At 9:02 a.m. when the bomb went off, Michael Loudenslager was in court in a different building. Okay, so we have witnesses there at court. We have witnesses at the Oklahoma City bombing site, the Murrah building. Numerous rescue workers, numerous first responders saw him after the bombing happened when he was actively engaged in the action of saving people, critically injured victims. They saw him. And so he is officially listed among the 168 bomb fatalities on that day.
It seems like that would be something that is easily provable. Like, this dude was in court. Wouldn't there be a record of that?
Well, I mean, it's now been several decades. Back then, all they had was the mainstream media. I mean, like, I was watching this live as it was happening, and I noticed, even at that young age, that the story was changing throughout the day. And so this is why the mainstream media and the government are so good at propaganda. They have perfected it over the years. Okay. The truth is the truth as long as you say it's the truth.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, and what do they say? Like we question the official story. Okay. You're a baseless conspiracist.
It's so true, man.
You peddle in misinformation.
It's so true.
Why are you trying to elicit distrust in the government? Are you some sort of radical? Are you a revolutionary?
So then what happens when enough people no longer accept what the mainstream media is saying as truth?
Right now.
Exactly.
This happens.
Exactly.
Yes. This is why I feel so good about everything, guys, is because they cannot hide this stuff anymore. All right. We've got too much information, and people you need to question everything, especially when it's coming from authoritative sources.
We don't want that to happen.
So the gist of it is that Michael Loudenslager died at the site, but he was murdered sometime after the bombing. Now, we don't know who. All right. There were enough feds there that they could have, simply brought him out back, a couple of quick dome taps, and then
What was that sound effect?
That was a silenced 9mm.
Okay, I was just curious. Sounded more like a whip or something, but
yeah. So, the federal government sequestered the area. They would not allow anybody in. They would not allow for a proper investigation. So, it becomes impossible to get anything more than what we know. Like I said, he had a wife. He had one son. They were both obviously devastated by his death. And it's one of the more obvious irregularities surrounding Mike Loudenslager and his death,
I mean, that's fascinating, mind-blowing.
Yeah.
But he's not even the primary subject of our show tonight.
No, he's not. Let me show you this article, a report from just over a year ago, March 3rd, 2023. Hold on. I'm going to pull this up over in this window, John. And okay, so now you can see that, right? No, you can't.
There you go. Now I can see it.
Okay.
Can you guys in the chat see this? Because some of our shows have been experiencing issues with the media not playing.
Yeah. So you guys see this on screen? Why did this cop turn up dead? We need confirmation out there.
Why did this cop turn up dead? A heroic police officer rescued at least 3 people after the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing. A year later, he was found shot in the head.
Yes. Okay, they can see it. This is a story on CNN, March 3rd of 2023, about the death of Officer Terrence Yakey. All right. So I know that's the thing. That's the thing. CNN is writing about this. And it just goes to show you that the strange circumstances surrounding the events of Oklahoma City are still questioned to this day, even by a mainstream source like CNN. Now, do I trust CNN to give us the full story? Absolutely not.
Can you send me this link?
Absolutely, John. Yes. We're not going to do anything more than I just wanted to use it as an example, just to show you that this is still being talked about. I put it in the private chat right there.
Thank you.
This is an article from the time that Terrence Yakey died. Okay, so as CNN said in that article, he was the first responder on scene at the Oklahoma City bombing. And then a year later, he was found suicided under very, very strange circumstances. And I will go over all of them.
Okay, because I'm glancing this article.
Yeah.
And can I just read these like a few lines here? And
I'm going to get into them. We're going to hold on to it. Okay. Hold on to it. And we will get to it. I want to read you this article from Oklahoma City at this is actually by the Associated Press. It was published locally and it's entitled Oklahoma Hero Commits Suicide. Okay. A reluctant hero. This is May 13th, 1996. A reluctant hero of the Oklahoma City bombing took his own life. He was racked with guilt because an injury kept him from rescuing more victims, his closest friend said yesterday. The federal building claimed 169 lives, a tearful Officer Jim Ramsey said. It just got another one. Sergeant Terrence Yakey, 30, was found Wednesday in a field near his home in El Reno. He had apparently tried to slit his wrists, then shot himself to death just 3 days before he was to have received the department's Medal of Valor. Ramsey and Yakey were among the first Oklahoma City police officers to reach the scene on April 19th, 1995 bombing that killed 168 people at the Alfred P. Murrah building. Yakey rescued at least 4 people before he fell through 2 floors of the wrecked building and injured his back. Yakey did not leave a suicide note, said Captain Bill Kitty, the department spokesperson. That left friends and coworkers to speculate that he was driven by guilt over the bombing rescue and his despondence over a troubled family life. He was in the midst of a strange situation with his ex-wife that he was trying to remarry. He had a lot of guilt because he got hurt, Ramsey said. Ramsey, who is to receive the city's Medal of Honor for the bombing rescue, choked back tears as he clutched a thick pile of letters from children praising Yakey. Yakey had taught in the department's DARE program, which tries to keep kids away from drugs since August. Repeatedly hailed as a hero of the bombing's immediate aftermath, Yakey shied away from his attention and said his supervisor, Lieutenant Joe Ann Randall. He didn't like it. There are some people that like to be heroes and some that don't. He was not one that wanted that. Divorced from his wife, Tanya, Yakey was legally prevented from entering the house the couple had shared with their 2 daughters, ages 2 and 4, Ramsey said. His ex-wife, his love for his 2 daughters that he could not see, are what might have driven Yakey to suicide. Kitty said police were investigating a report that an order barring Yakey from going near his ex-wife had been violated. Yakey also had a similar order against her, Kitty said. Yakey was attending night classes and working as a security guard in his off hours to pay child support, Ramsey said. Randall recalled an optimistic discussion about Yakey's future in the department just 2 days before his death. You want to go through the other things that were strange about Terry Yakey's body? I don't even know if they're going to put all of them in there, but.
Well, this is, again, the article you just sent over.
Correct.
CNN 2023. It says his wrists were cut, his neck was cut, he'd been shot through the head, and the authorities said it was a suicide. Like,
Yep.
how?
That's not even all of it, John. That's not even all of it.
Well, tell me all of it.
No, I'm getting there. I'm getting there. Okay. So he was found in a field. All right. His car was I don't know. I want to say it was like a half mile away. And the scene where he shot himself and slit his wrists and slit his neck and also had tied himself up, but there was no rope on scene. There was also no blood at the scene. All right. Which suspiciously made it look like he didn't actually die there in the middle of that field.
There's no blood at the scene when he cut his wrists and his neck before shooting himself in the head?
Yeah, no. Isn't that weird, John? Isn't that weird how that works? All the blood was in the car. I actually have a segment from an interview that his wife did shortly after he was. Do you want to listen?
I do, but I'm just like, I also want to. I can't believe that's he slit his wrist, cut his neck, shot himself in the head, and then got out of the car and walked over and died in a field. Like, give me a break.
Yeah. And somebody said no autopsy performed. There was an autopsy, but it just wasn't a very comprehensive autopsy. I mean, I've actually got some pictures from it. But, there was this narrative about he was a reluctant hero, that he just couldn't live with himself. All of that was bullshit. Terry Yakey knew that something else was going on. All right. Terry Yakey knew that this was not what it was being portrayed as. And his wife, Tanya, was aware that this was also not the case.
His divorced wife.
Yes, but they were divorced, but they were still on friendly terms. And he was insistent that they get back together and get remarried, even if they didn't live together, because that way she would get his pension and she would get the insurance money if and when he died. All right. Now, this was written about all over the place. But anyways, this field that he was found in, it was over a mile from his abandoned vehicle. But again, there was no blood. All of that blood was found in his vehicle. His wife, I believe Tracy was her name. She was told that when they opened the car door, there was so much blood that it was spilling out of the car. like almost like he had bled out in the car and then walked himself out to the middle of that field without any blood in his body. Now, I mentioned rope, okay? He had evidence of having been bound because he had rope burns on his neck. He had ligature marks on his wrists. He had the numerous deep cuts that were to his arms. I want to say there was like 11 or more cuts to his wrists on both sides. And then, of course, the neck and the strange entrance and exit wound of the bullet that went through his head. It entered at his right temple at a 45-degree angle. Okay, which means, okay, so think about committing suicide. Okay, you want to blow your head off. You're just going to point the gun at your head and pull the trigger. This was coming in from up here like this and went into his head. Now, I mentioned that it was at a 45-degree angle. That indicates it was coming from somebody else. It was also not the same caliber as his service rifle or service pistol. Completely different caliber.
What?
You want to know what else?
I do want to know what else. This is insane.
There was no gun found at the scene. When his body was found, there was no gun. Until an FBI agent showed up and out of nowhere finds a gun in an area that had already been searched only 5 minutes before he got there. He just walks right up and he's like, oh, hey, guys, here's the gun. Yes.
Suspect number one right there.
No doubt. No doubt.
But what the hell? Like, this is insane, man. But the authorities just, it's suicide.
So here's the
how
other
can
thing.
they get away with that shit, man?
Because they control the levers of power. They control the bureaucracy. So
Insane. It's not a good enough excuse. But anyway, go ahead.
So Yankee was not suicidal. All right. Not only was he like very successful in his job, they were going to give him that Medal of Honor. He was reconciling with his wife. He was in contact with his daughters. He was also in the final processes of getting a job with the FBI in Irving, Texas. He was hoping to get hired by the FBI and then move to Dallas. So this supposed troubled relationship that he had, it had already been taken care of. Tanya was going to remarry him, and she was, going to maintain this relationship with him. So what it all comes down to, and what she said, was that what he witnessed during his initial first response to the bombing simply did not line up with the official version of events. And he had even written a report, a 9-page report, and handed it in to his superiors. I believe the one that was quoted in that short article about his suicide, that detailed all of those irregularities. Now, his boss got so mad that he wrote that report because it was now in writing and it was something that they, would have to hold on to.
Is it something anybody's tracked down?
Oh, no. It's all disappeared. Terry had files and files and files on this stuff, and he was keeping them secret because he knew that they were dangerous. He also knew that people were following him, and he knew that his life was in danger and that likely the people that he loved were also in danger. And
he talked about that fact?
He talked about that with his wife. Yes. We are going to listen to like that 5-minute segment from that interview with his wife. So all of his papers were stolen. The report, the original 9-page report, his supervisor lost it. Okay. And then made him write a shorter report. And, he was, from the moment that he was there, he was telling people this is not right. And he started doing his own investigation and collecting evidence to support his version of events, that things just did not work in the way that they said. So let me actually pull up this interview. And
this is the wife?
This is his wife. So this
after his suicide.
Yeah, this is her first interview with an Oklahoma City station in the wake. I think that she had done a couple of cursory interviews with other national outlets, just simply, because she didn't know. Okay, she had to they wouldn't give her any information, and she ended up having to do her own investigation, but she also knew that things were simply not what they appeared to be. So this is just an MP3 file. Can I upload an MP3 file to
you can't, if you go to brand,
yeah,
and then down to background music.
Okay.
Add music.
Okay, I see it now.
Here, like I'll play something while we're waiting.
Okay. Okay, we're good.
Okay, go ahead.
Actually started the day of the bombing that he had made some strange statements that at first I wasn't able to really put into any kind of logical order, but later on it began to make sense why he was making these comments. I picked him up. I got a call about 11:30, Monday 11:15, the morning of the bombing from Presbyterian Hospital. They said Terry had been injured, and I needed to come down there and get him. In that 2-hour time, I've been trying to find him. His computer in his police vehicle was not working. Nobody could get a hold of him. Nobody seemed to know where he was. So I was really concerned because I knew he worked that area early in the morning, so I was concerned and was relieved to get the call. So I went down there to Presbyterian Hospital, picked him up. The strange thing was his first statement that came out of his mouth was, "Get me out of this hospital. No matter what you got to do, get me out of here." I said, okay. He's very adamant. I didn't know at the time that I've been told later that he was threatened at the hospital. I didn't know where the source of threatening came, but that's what I've been told later on, about a year after his death. As soon as we got in the vehicle, and Terry had injured his back carrying Randy Ledger out of the building. Randy was a large man, probably almost 300 pounds, and he had fallen through some rubble. So he couldn't even walk, couldn't sit up. And as soon as they loaded him into the car, he got very upset, started to cry a little bit, and said, Tanya, it's not what they're saying it is. They're not telling the truth. They're lying about what's going on down there. And I did try to press him a little bit, ask him questions, but he didn't seem very willing to talk about it. It was just kind of a comment, you know, it's not what they're portraying it to be. From that point on, it was about 2 or 3 days later, after the bombing, he had asked me to take him down to the site. And mind you, Terry couldn't even walk. He really was not in any shape to go down there. But he kept insisting we needed to go back down there. Said that we needed to go at night when we could not be seen. And people would just recognize us easily. I didn't understand the reason for that, but I didn't ask a lot of questions either because he just seemed unwilling to give a lot of information. We did go down there, probably between 9:30, 10 o'clock. And he said that we were going to go look underneath where the daycare had been. There was something he wanted to see under there and get a picture if possible. As we went down there, we were stopped, and I can't remember which personnel it was, but I know definitely it was either ATF or FBI. I just cannot recall what the name was on the back of his jacket, but it was one of the two. And Terry had attempted to badge his way through, and the guy told him no. Then he said something a little more specific, like, you know you're not supposed to be back down here, something along the lines that made me realize the two of them recognized each other, and the interaction was very antagonistic. I think had I not been with Terry, he would have said a little more to the man, and maybe been a little more forceful about getting through, but it seemed like he thought better about it since I was with him, and we left. And then he asked me as we got in the car that I not be seen down at the site. And mind you, I worked a job that might require me to go down to the site. but I did not because he was very adamant that I not be seen down there at any point in time. The entire year after that was lots of strange incidences, lots of strange comments from him. About 15 days after the bombing happened, I got a call from his supervisor, Lieutenant Joanne Randall. And she was being pretty hostile, pretty aggressive, and asked me where Terry was, told her he was not there. And she said, you tell Terry that if he doesn't get that other report in, that he's going to be reprimanded if he does not get that in by the end of the night.
Who was this?
This is Lieutenant Joanne Randall, and this was his supervisor, direct supervisor at the time. Now, let me give you a little filler in there. In this time frame, Terry had written a 9-page report. I know that he wrote a 9-page report. I saw it. This is the only report, however, that I've ever asked him to read that he did not let me. I didn't understand the reason for that at the time. It was, I've ridden with my husband, on ride-alongs. We talk a lot about what had happened at work. I've read reports about the prostitutes on 9th and Francis, just meaning that nothing was really all that sacred. If I asked about it, usually he was pretty forthcoming in telling me about it. This time it was an absolute no. He didn't want me reading this 9-page report. And that's an awfully long report. I don't ever know too many police incident reports that are that long, but his was.
As you look back on that, do you find that as his way of protecting you by making sure that you didn't have that knowledge?
That's what I believe. That is what I believe. At the time, it was strange to me, but 2 years later, it comes into perspective really clear that he did not want me to have any knowledge of what was going on down there.
Obviously, both of your phones were tapped because you had some messages on your
Listen to this
machine that shouldn't have been there.
Right, that happened after his death. Because
messages like what?
Well, this is really odd, but it would be recorded messages of me either having a phone conversation or me having a conversation with another individual in person. Someone would have taped it and would play it back to me.
Somebody was, in other words, if you were standing on the corner in front of Walmart talking to someone, you might have a first-hand tape of that played back onto your machine.
Exactly. Yes, and I had that
scary.
happen. It is. It's an invasion on you. You realize that you're not so safe.
Well, they were trying, and that's what they were trying to tell you by saying, "Look at what we can do without you even knowing it." So you better watch out.
Well, it actually started the day of the bombing that he had made some strange statements that at first I wasn't able to really put into any kind of logical order, but later on it began to make sense why he was making these comments. I picked him up. I got a call about 11:30, Monday 11:15, the morning of the bombing from Presbyterian Hospital. They said Terry had been injured, and I needed to come down there and get him. In that 2-hour time, I've been trying to find him. His computer in his police vehicle was not working. Nobody could get a hold of him. Nobody seemed to know where he was. So I was really concerned because I knew he worked that area early in the morning, so I was concerned and was relieved to get the call. So I went down there to Presbyterian Hospital, picked him up. The strange thing was his first statement that came out of his mouth was, "Get me out of this hospital. No matter what you got to do, get me out of here." I said, okay. He's very adamant. I didn't know at the time that I've been told later that he was threatened at the hospital. I didn't know where the source of threatening came, but that's what I've been told later on, about a year after his death. As soon as we got in the vehicle, and Terry had injured his back carrying Randy Ledger out of the building. Randy was a large man, probably almost 300 pounds, and he had fallen through some rubble. So he couldn't even walk, couldn't sit up. And as soon as they loaded him into the car, he got very upset, started to cry a little bit, and said, Tanya, it's not what they're saying it is. They're not telling the truth. They're lying about what's going on down there. And yeah, I did try to press him a little bit, ask him questions, but he didn't seem very willing to talk about it. It was just kind of a comment, you know, it's not what they're portraying it to be. From that point on, it was about 2 or 3 days later, after the bombing, he had asked me to take him down to the site. And mind you, Terry couldn't even walk. He really was not in any shape to go down there. But he kept insisting we needed to go back down there. Said that we needed to go at night when we could not be seen. And people would just recognize us easily. I didn't understand the reason for that, but I didn't ask a lot of questions either because he just seemed unwilling to give a lot of information. We did go down there, probably between 9:30, 10 o'clock, and he said that we were going to go look underneath.
Oh, it's looping. It's looping. Sorry. It started playing the beginning again. Okay, so going back through what she said, Terry immediately had told her that things were not right. He needed to get out of there. He had been threatened in the hospital immediately after. And even after he died, people were making her aware that they were surveilling her. And it wasn't just that it was telephone surveillance. There was sophisticated enough surveillance that they were recording her when she was out on the street, just out doing her thing. And then they would call and leave those messages of her talking and having conversations with other people. That's a clear message to let her know that she cannot afford to talk to anybody else about this stuff.
I mean, there's a lot of weird things. It was hard to hear at first, but
I cleaned it up as best I could.
Well, I mean, it is what it is. It's the recording, but if you listen to it carefully, you can hear what she's saying. And the fact that she knew about the report, but he would not show it to her.
Exactly. He didn't want to put her in danger. And he warned her not to come down there either. Yeah. So Terry, from the beginning, was getting pressure from federal authorities. We don't know who. He wouldn't tell Tanya exactly what he saw. He was very cagey about all of it. But not only the feds, but the Oklahoma City Police Department, they were all trying to pressure him into just, parroting the official version of events of what had happened. And that pressure campaign had continued on essentially up until the moment that he died. Now, he had a storage facility where he had kept all of that evidence, all the information from his investigation, and that all disappeared again. Now, on the day that he disappeared and turned up dead, he called his wife and he said, as soon as I shake these feds that are following me, I'll be back home and we'll go to dinner. So he just never reappeared.
When was that?
This was the day he was killed. Okay.
When I shake the feds.
Yes. When I shake
we'll
the feds.
We'll go to dinner.
Yes. We'll go to dinner. So, I mean, obviously he knew he was being followed. Okay. And
he didn't shake him.
No, he didn't shake him. They got him. So they, so immediately Tanya and the rest of his family all insisted that he had not killed himself. There was no way. And they still say it up until today. None of them believe that he had killed himself. So with the circumstances surrounding his death, it just becomes quite obvious that Terry Yakey was murdered by some element of the government. And I'm going to go through some more stuff about his body. So I mentioned the gun that had shot him, his service pistol was a 9mm, and the gunshot on his head was much larger. So maybe closer to like a .357. But more importantly, there were no powder burns on his skull. Okay. It went in at a 45-degree angle up here and it came out here on his cheek. All right. So he would have had to have shot like this if it would have been him. There's just no way. It's impossible. And then, all of the other damage that was done to his body, that's, it's just, it doesn't work like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So hang on, I thought I had like a tweet which showed an x-ray of his skull.
It's just insane. Like any one piece of these things is like, okay, well, that's very questionable. I'm being followed by feds. Once I shake them, I'll show up to dinner. The cut my wrist, cut my throat, and get shot in the head at the wrong, like every single one of these things is questionable, but all of them together it's just insanity. Like it's so freaking obvious.
Yeah. So it was also alleged that he might have seen like a bomb on site or like blasting caps or like some sort of detonator or something. But yeah, I mean, at this point, all of his initial findings, everything that he did throughout the investigation, it's not anything we're ever going to be able to see. There was also a citizens grand jury that was convened in Oklahoma City that did a bunch, like way more investigation than the actual government did. And they came to conclusions that did not jive with the official investigation. And it was done in conjunction with a state house member, and it was released. If you guys want to hear about that, you got to watch A Noble Lie. That goes into a number of other people who were killed. All of the findings of the grand jury. There was this guy, Hoppy Heidelberg, who was involved in that. I would highly suggest you watch that. A Noble Lie is available on a number of different streaming platforms for free. Okay, here we go. This is that tweet that I had. And it's going to be this one right here. Okay, so here it is. This is the entrance wound up here, and then here is the exit wound.
Yeah, it makes no sense.
It doesn't make any sense. No. And it's the wrong gun. So it couldn't have been him killing himself.
I want to read that there, though. Terrence Yankee was found dead in a field. His neck and wrists were deeply cut. He bled to death in his car, but was found 1 mile away. 1 mile away.
Over a mile away.
Strangulated. His wrist showed handcuff scars. A bullet wound entered from a 45-degree angle through the top of his temple. He was shot with a suppressed pistol. No gun was found at the scene. The official cause of death, suicide.
Yeah.
Man.
Impossible. So, the marks on his wrists, the marks on his neck looked like razor blades. Obviously, the blood in the car, it would have been impossible for him to have walked a mile or so to that place where he was found dead. So it doesn't add up. None of it adds up. And there was another postmortem that was done, an autopsy that was done, and they determined that here we go. I believe it was it Michael Hayden that did the autopsy? Hold on. All right. Actually, I think this might have been from the autopsy that was done based upon the evidence from the wounds. So they said all the autopsy evidence shows that Yakee's wounds were consistent with a torture execution. The fatal shot was fired from a pistol with a silencer, held in contact with Yakee's skull, leaving a barrel imprint and very little powder residue. Nope. Have you ever like screwed a silencer onto a pistol?
No.
I mean, you're adding like 6 inches or more to it. Okay. Like it's just not going to happen. So, and again, the pistol was not.
That's what she said.
Until after
mistimed that a little bit, but
so it was after the FBI arrived. It was over an hour after the body had been found. Again, all of that stuff had been searched. There was no pistol there initially. You had the handcuff marks on his wrists. That was actually according to the funeral director who had, interned his body. And then by the time the body actually arrived at the funeral home, those wrist lacerations had been sewn up and there was grass and mud inside, which showed that Yakee had been dragged through the mud as he attempted to fight off his attackers.
Insane, man.
Yeah. And to be quite honest with you, we could continue with another probably 3 weeks of Oklahoma City information, but I think we're going to go ahead and end it right there.
Wrap it up.
Yeah.
That's good. That's fine.
Yeah. Terry Yakee didn't kill himself. That's for sure.
But he probably did have information on Hillary Clinton or something because holy shit.
I didn't even get into what was in the basement. Okay. So definitely there was paperwork from Iran-Contra that was inside the basement of the Murrah building. Highly likely there was MENA drug smuggling details that were in the basement perhaps whitewater. Also, from an interview that I did with Cody Snodgrass years ago, who recently passed away, God bless his soul. He had actually, he used to be a black ops guy for the CIA. And he came forward eventually because they tried to kill him. He had been approached about doing the Murrah building bombing. And when he learned what it was they wanted him to do, and it was only for $50,000, he said, no, I'm not going to have any part of this. And so after that, they started coming after him. But during Gulf War I, when all of our troops had gone over to Iraq, it was the first time that we ever used depleted uranium. All right. And depleted uranium had never been used in the field. Because of the density of the depleted uranium shells, when they would hit tanks, it would leave this just, explosive blast, depositing these novel radioactive ions all over the battlefield. And they were of a particulate size that was smaller than the filters on the gas masks that they gave our troops. And so our troops were breathing in this radioactive dust. It was getting into their bodies. And this is what caused Gulf War syndrome. All right. And then when they went home, they were having sex with their wives. That radioactive stuff would be in their bodies and it would deposit into the wives in the sperm. Okay. And then it would pass on to the wives. And then it would be present in the children that were born afterwards. Now, the VA did all of these investigations to determine what the hell happened with Gulf War syndrome. Why were these people getting sick? It was the first time they had ever worked with depleted uranium in that way. And it's obvious from the areas where we leave these depleted uranium shells and where things have blown up, they make the people there sick. Okay. And eventually all of that information from the VA was taken and it was stored in the basement at the Murrah building. Now, it's on record that the VA lost all of the records of these guys. If they hadn't lost it, that they would have been on the hook for every single person's care and medical bills and for the medical bills of their children and the spouses. And they basically were let off the hook because they couldn't prove what was causing Gulf War syndrome. I don't know if you remember, John, but I mean, you might have been too young, but they were telling these guys that it was psychosomatic at first and that they couldn't, pinpoint what was wrong because, not to mention on top of that, they were giving these guys the novel anthrax vaccines. They had a regular anthrax vaccine. They came up with an accelerated anthrax vaccine so that rather than having to do like a series of vaccines over a number of weeks, they just give you the one vaccine and then boom, they can send you out to the field. And I mean, they knew that it was a possibility that they were going to get anthraxed because, I mean, they had provided it to Saddam Hussein, the United States government, CIA, probably the same anthrax that they sent around after 9/11. Which convinced all of the lawmakers that were not going to vote for the Patriot Act to then vote for the Patriot Act. So anyways, there was paperwork that would have implicated so many people. Again, Iran-Contra, the MENA drug smuggling, the Gulf War syndrome, and boom, all of it's gone. And Bill Clinton basically is made to look like a hero. He became extremely popular after the Oklahoma City bombing took place. Strong, decisive leadership in passing the new terror legislation. And then we're off to the races. And here we are today.
Crazy, man. Let's get to the rants here. We got quite a few of them. So M. Boyer says, Potatus Dictortot. Our new nickname. Love you guys. And my new Badlands sports bottle. Awesome. Thank you for supporting our merch stuff. You can find that on our website. Dirk McGurk, and the difference is if Trump doesn't win in 24 and there is a steal and nothing changes, the gloves will come off. I don't think they will allow that to get that far. Julie JN says, I still have a couple regard lib FB friends that are pushing it hard. Their post memes are ridiculous. Jody IVRN says, Badlands has helped me focus on the real truth here than any other podcasts. Thank you. 20 rant. Fred Awakening, I'm still working but watching. I think Zach pronouncing Ben as Bean is endearing. I wonder if he says Ben Franklin is Bean Franklin. Inquiring minds want to know, Mohap.
Well, the Ben only has one E.
So I think it's a legitimate question, Fredo.
Yes.
Been wondering the same thing. Dirk McGurkin, my 2 cents. You will know we are close when we can have a real discussion about ending Medicare and Social Security. Like that. Operative 17, can't wait to engage in Baseless conspiring at my first in-person guard at Deadwood and sitting on the Badlands website waiting for Myrtle Beach tickets to drop. LOL, need some based camaraderie. You will certainly get it at these guard events. We'll let you know a little ahead of time for you GART ticket holders when the Myrtle Beach ones go on sale. So if you have your in-person Deadwood ticket or your virtual one, you'll probably get a couple days jump on the Myrtle Beach tickets. Blue 7i, you guys are so smart. My concern is that dumbass like me will still be able to hang in with you guys at the Deadwood in GART. Well, there'll be plenty of dumbasses. We're all dumbasses in our own right, so you have nothing to worry about there. Oh yeah, don't forget to hit the thumbs up, everybody. We always appreciate that.
Definitely.
Good God is. How about Nixon presidency for conspiracy theories?
I mean, which aspect? I mean, Nixon being overthrown by the CIA. I mean, I could definitely do that one.
We have a few on our list that we could.
Yeah.
We'll let you know. Vegas Deplorable 26. You know, Vegas could give you that good feeling too, John, but not like Deadwood. I've been to Vegas and Deadwood. I like Deadwood better.
Don't forget Agate.
Oh, did I miss one?
Yeah. I'd like to know more about the Nashville bombing.
That'd be a good one.
I mean, it's actually, I mean, since it happened, I haven't really done any digging into it. I don't know what's out there. I'll try to see if I can find my original video that I did on it back then.
Yeah, man, that'd be cool. Julie JN, is there a Northern California group? I'm on my phone, so just post in comments and I will look after the show. Yes, if you guys could do that. I believe there is a California group. They were just in Temecula pretty recently. 1027 GS, good evening, guys. Thumbs up. Thank you, Joe. Nice to see you, as always. Future objective. Real talk, Deep State is shadow sighting our viewer count tonight, folks. Normally, we're closer to 10K. 1 hour in, we're at about 5,600 as of this rant. Yeah, we've had some weird things going on with our numbers.
Yeah, me too.
Network wide, maybe even Rumble Ride. I don't know.
I didn't look at any, but I mean, obviously, I'm paying attention to our shows, and I could tell on my show that I was about 2,000 to 3,000 viewers less than what I would have normally expected. But
yeah,
so
weird. The chat seems to be like flowing like normal, so I don't know what's going on. Who we got? John WRY on IV says third attempt to rant. Third time's the charm, man. Looks like it went through.
I'd say John W. Ryan the fourth.
There you go. Maybe.
Yeah.
I like my way better. Heard it both ways. Dirk McGurkin, they never thought she would lose.
Nope.
Quinn Dixap says, great digging, Zach, as always, for sure.
Thank you.
John W. Ryan the fourth says, don't know why I have trouble ranting, but Mohap.
Always.
And then Freight Awakening, I've never been more convinced that Mike Flynn needs to be VP. Carson is a great man, but we need someone that protects Donald J. Trump. Flynn will rain fire if they do the unthinkable. I've heard that reasoning many times, and I do not think that is a relevant reason for a VP. I would be totally supportive of Flynn as VP. I think he'd be a good one. I do think he would be better served in a different place in his cabinet. But if your reasoning for Flynn being VP is so that they don't assassinate Trump, I just think it's illogical, because if they could assassinate Trump, he would have been assassinated a while ago. That's just my 2 cents.
I feel like it would just be too obvious. Like they could have done it at any point. So I think he's not. I think he's safe.
Agreed. And so I don't think that is going to be his reasoning for picking a VP. Plus, I also think there's other people that would rain fire in a similar fashion. But again, just my opinion, I think Flynn would be a great choice. So Freight Awakening, great show, gents. So excited about it that I plan to celebrate by himself later. 2F17. Zach, remember when Cody was interviewed by Hagman and the son died from a heroin overdose? Was that because of Cody? Because Cody was in a wreck that night after the interview?
So yes, I am aware of that. And when Hagman's son died of a heroin overdose, the first thing I thought was that he was killed, but come to find out he had been struggling with a heroin problem for some time, and it just wasn't public. it's entirely possible that they might have given him a hot shot. I don't know. Honestly, everything is possible at when it comes to something like this. It's really, really tragic.
You never know. But that is all the rants, man. So cool. We'll have a new conspiracy for you guys next week. It's been a fun little Oklahoma City bombing thing.
Hold
Very
on.
eye-opening.
Lisa. I'll talk to you off air, John.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, we will catch you all next week. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up, and you'll see me again on Wednesday. You can find Zach tomorrow on his channel at noon?
5 p.m.
5 p.m.
Yeah.
Apologies. See you next week, everybody.
Peace.